Speedway, Alameda County, California. All across the scalded brown hills, looming above this seedy, out-at-the-elbows drag strip, located 50 miles northeast of San Francisco in the monotonous sepia-toned waste of Livermore Valley, there hung in the already polluted air the mingled odors of burning grass and patchouli oil, that heavy, almost suffocating body scent so favored among the now nameless nomads who used to be called the hippies. In the course of the day, last Saturday, 4 babies were born in the midst of the multitudes assembled here, and an undetermined number of expectant mothers suffered miscarriages. That evening, 4 people from the throng died violently, 3 of them by violent accident. The 4th, a still nameless black man, was kicked and stabbed to death in full or partial view of a crowd that various professional head counters put between 300,000 and 500,000 people, quite possibly the largest throng ever assembled for a rock music event anywhere in the nation, including Woodstock. The immense crowd had come together on less than a full day's notice for the long-promised and often canceled free Rolling Stones concert, first planned for Golden Gate Park. As soon as the Altamont site was selected on Friday, the hordes began to arrive by the tens of thousands, virtually in tandem with the fleet of rented trucks ferrying in electronic equipment for the sound system and raw lumber for the stage. Early arrivals staked out choice vantage points in the parched grass near where the stage was being frantically erected in the natural amphitheater adjacent to the racetrack stands. The overnight campers found no public water supply, no stable food concession, and scanty sanitation facilities. On Saturday, I saw men and boys by the score urinating against a fence near the long queues leading to the line of portable johns. With some friends, I arrived at the mingle, mangle, and jam of the amphitheater well before noon. We had to walk 4 miles after a grinning California highway patrolman directed us into a parking space on a feeder road off US 580 with the good-natured crack, "Rock Festival to your right, it's out of sight." Along the march route to the performance area, dope of all shapes, sizes, and colors was being openly dropped, smoked, bartered, and sold. The only police in sight were the far too few highway patrolmen who were concentrating exclusively on directing the nightmarishly snarled traffic. In the crush of the amphitheater, my friends and I found a place to sit perhaps a quarter of a mile away from the bandstand. I scanned the crowd with zoom lens binoculars. The sheer magnitude of the gathering was awesome, and as the day progressed, not a little disquieting. In the main, the audience struck me as benign, passive, and unutterably stoned, but more than once I had the troubling feeling that if the mammoth crowd was itself capable of feeling anything on a mass gut level, the mass gut immediately devoured its own feeling, swallowed up its own capacity for spontaneity by its very enormity. It wasn't a good feeling. Sam Cutler, the Stones' Cockney road manager, took the mic a few minutes before noon to plead access for a truck attempting to deliver music equipment. "If all the cowboys will get off the Hertz van, please." A cluster of kids clung to the sides of the truck in order to get into the already perilously packed area near the stage. Only a scattering of the Easy Riders dropped off as requested. Cutler shrugged and said, "All right then, let's have a party." The speed-oriented rock band Santana opened the program. During the group's second number, which sounded depressingly like its first, someone hurled an empty wine bottle at the stage. Slivers of glass rained across the platform. The band's guitarist broke off playing and savagely cursed the heckler. An unidentified stage functionary took the mic to request that the Hells Angels come on stage to serve as a security force. The Angels didn't hesitate. Strutting and preening in their colors, lugging cases of beer with them, they swarmed onto the platform in a cadre 40-odd strong. At that precise moment, nobody, Sam Cutler included, could have had any way of knowing it, but the party was already well on the way to being over. After a characteristically lengthy delay, the Jefferson Airplane followed Santana. Nothing but nothing went right for them. To begin with, it was one of their unhappy days to start off sounding maddeningly off-key. Then, just as they were beginning to pick up a little altitude, a nude black man, obviously freaked out, somehow managed to clamber up on the apron of the stage. An angel braced him, and the black man clumsily threw a punch that didn't connect. 4 angels kicked and beat the man to his knees, and still flailing at him, dragged him off stage. There was ominous surging and shoving in the tight-packed throng near the platform. Grace Slick crooned over and over, "Please, sit down, people, please, sit down." The band continued to play a mechanical semblance of the other side of this life. At the song's conclusion, Jack Cassidy, trembling with emotion, snapped caustically, "Will the angels please note that when somebody is freaking out, you don't help him by kicking the shit out of him." At the rebuke, the angels charged bullishly into the band. It was a sick, scary moment as fists flew and bodies blurred in a confused tangle. When the pandemonium ended, only Grace was left untouched. Sam Cutler grabbed an open mic and requested that all unauthorized people, meaning the angels, leave the stage immediately. The angels defiantly stood their ground. In the audience, a rusty-haired kid from Fresno shrugged fatalistically. "The angels are just red freaks, that's all. Those dudes used to be heavy, man, but nowadays they're stone geeks. That's what Reds will do to you." While the Flying Burrito Brothers rousingly jammed the kicks out of 6 days on the road, the nude black man reappeared at the border of the stage. The angels made a half-hearted grab at him, but this time some friendly long hairs led him off in the direction of the medical tent. Since I promised to call in a report on the day's doings to WABC in San Francisco, I went searching for a phone. I found one, exactly one telephone, in the firm grip of a local newsman who explained that he couldn't relinquish it for a minute because in addition to his own news chores, he was coordinating the helicopter flights, landing and evacuating the performing rock groups. "Sorry, pal," he smiled wanly, and for a lingering moment, I almost felt sorry for him. On stage, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young began their set unannounced. By now, the platform was aswarm with more angels than ever, despite Sam Cutler's earlier warning that the bandstand might collapse under their weight. At times, the swaggering bikers and their old ladies obscured the performers from view. Inching my way back to where I'd been sitting in the crowd, I took a quick personal inventory. I was wind-chapped and sunburned and shaken by the fracas on stage, and more than a little pissed off that I'd have to drive all the way to Tracy, a ranching town some 15 miles away, just to make a simple goddamn phone call. The concert's organizers had promised to conclude the program before dark, but the sun went down about 4:30 and there was no sign of the Rolling Stones. The crowd began to thin out, but not in large numbers. The angels stood in a solid phalanx across the front of the stage, arms akimbo, glowering at the audience. Cutler announced, "The Stones positively won't come out to perform while the stage is in its present state. Get off the stage, get off the stage," a sizable portion of the crowd began to howl. None of the angels budged, and the cry soon faded away. After another tense delay, Cutler reappeared and surveyed the audience for a long, grave moment before saying simply, "I'd like to introduce your friends, the Rolling Stones." It was full dark now. Scores of bonfires were flickering on the trash-strewn slopes. Everybody present was standing and craning, and suddenly the Stones were before us in a dazzling burst of noise and lights, Mick Jagger bumping and grinding in exquisite nastiness and rasping out Jumping Jack Flash. For the first time of the day seemed to have some significance. After the song, an angel attempted to block Jagger's path to the edge of the stage. Jagger stepped around him. "There's so many of you," he said admiringly to the audience. "Stay cool now and try not to move around too much." The prelude to the final trouble came a third of the way through Sympathy for the Devil. Apparently angered by hecklers in the first few rows, a half-dozen angels swan-dived off the stage into the audience and began whipping heads. The music stopped abruptly. In a pleading voice, Jagger, who was wearing a long red robe, cried, "Everybody, brothers and sisters, cool out. Listen to me, please, cool out. Is anybody hurt? Who's fighting, and what for? We've got to stop this trouble, right now." After a few confused moments, the music resumed. At that point, my friends and I gladly left the amphitheater so I could make my phone call in Tracy, which I did, which in turn threw us back into the heart of the post-concert bumper-to-bumper turtle derby headed toward Livermore and the city 2 hours later. It took us 3 hours to travel 25 miles. On the radio, we heard that the freaked-out black man the Angels had stomped had made his third and final appearance at the concert stage. The poor bastard had gone off somewhere and gotten himself a gun, and then he'd gone back and gotten himself kicked and cut to death for his trouble. When we reached the Alameda County line about a mile north of the amphitheater, I spotted a teenage girl wrapped in a poncho sitting alone on the shoulder of the highway. Something about her posture made me get out of the barely moving car to see if she needed a ride. She didn't raise her head at the question. "Mister, I don't need a ride," she said in a thick, slurred stone slur. "I need to go to a hospital." Involuntarily, her hand twitched out from under the poncho. Apparently, she'd lit a cigarette some time back and then forgotten about it. Her fingers were on fire.